News.
Good evening. I'm Malika Basnet. Let's begin with the top stories. Major parties agree to form national consensus government only after constitution promulgation. Vow to focus on reconstruction then after. Schools reopen after a month-long hiatus. All goes well on the first day of resumption. The European Union is livid with Russia's entry ban against 89 European politicians, officials and military leaders. And national cricket team leaves for India to prepare for ICC T20 World Cup qualifiers and World Cricket League Championship. The main parties have agreed to form the national consensus government only after the formulation of the constitution. During a meeting held today at Balwatar, the four main parties, Nepali Congress, UML, Unified Maoist and Madheshi Jan Adhikar Forum, reached an understanding in principle to proceed for a national consensus government after the promulgation of the constitution. They also said that the consensus government would then focus on reconstruction. In the Constituent Assembly meeting that resumed after the devastating earthquake, the parties had emphasized on the formation of a national consensus government to kick off reconstruction campaign. It is now time for our segment Public Pulse, where you SMS us with your opinion.
Brought to you by Nepalaya High Secondary School, Kalanki, Kathmandu, Campaign Kathmandu School, Gahana Pokhari, Kathmandu, Rivera International Academy, Charbahil, Kathmandu.
But before that, let's have a look at yesterday's poll results. Yesterday we had asked you, what's your take on political mobilization during the disaster? 14% voted for A, positive, 33% for B, average, and 53% for C, disappointing. Time for today's question. How do you see the initiative taken by parties for national consensus government? Your options are A, indications of constitution, B, crisis compulsion, and C, power lust. The voting is on. Type NEW or select your options A, B or C and send it to 8080 and share your opinion with us. The Constituent Assembly meeting slated for today has been called off. The meeting was adjourned citing that the lawmakers are busy in rescue and relief operations in the quake-affected districts. The next meeting has been scheduled for the 4th of June. Earlier, the meetings were suspended following the endorsement of condolence proposal for late Suryabadu Thapa, Ram Natakal, Salim Mia Ansari and Chakrabadu Chakuri. Meanwhile, CA Chair Subhash Chandra Nemwang has requested the parties to forge consensus on the Constitution's underlying issues before the next meeting convenes. He said Constitution could be promulgated within mid-July this year if the parties sort out the differences with regard to the key contentious issues and procedure. Schools that had been shut after the April 25th earthquake and its subsequent aftershocks resume from today. Students were seen excited to go back to school and classes mainly involved students in various fun activities today. Schools in the valley have said that regular classes will only resume after a week. We have a report.
Schools that had been closed due to recent earthquakes resumed after a 35-day hiatus. Students were excited to see their friends after many days and said it increased their confidence. However, many students remained absent as earthquake fears have not subsided due to continuous aftershocks. Meanwhile, schools welcomed the students today as if it was the beginning of a new session. On the first day of resumption of classes, the schools were busy imparting lessons on safe classrooms and safety measures against the danger imposed by earthquakes. Music and entertainment was the order of the day in schools today. Teachers were seen providing invaluable counseling to the students in a bid to wipe out fears and anxieties that have developed in the aftermath of the earthquake. Parents who risked schools were also provided counseling. School managements have said that regular classes will resume after a week of counseling and fun activities for the students. On a sadder note, some schools outside Kathmandu Valley that were completely destroyed have still not been able to set up temporary shelters. Despite the directive from the Education Ministry on resuming classes from today, it was not mandatory for schools without proper shelters to operate classes from today.
Meanwhile, schools outside the Kathmandu Valley have also opened up from today. Half of the 700 schools in the earthquake-ravaged Sindhupalchok resumed from today. Sindhupalchok CDO Dolnath Puri said that it will still take some time for all regular classes to be conducted here. Many schools in Sindhupalchok's Botang, Barua, Tatapani and Listi need to be shifted to other locations. Meanwhile, in Gorkha, some 50% students turned up at schools out of a total of 74,000 students. The recent earthquakes have damaged at least 3,052 classrooms in over 500 schools in Gorkha. District Education Office Gorkha said the classes are being managed in temporary shelters constructed with support from various social organizations. Meanwhile, in Nuwakot, students were involved in various fun activities as they reached their school more than a month later. District Education Office Nuwakot has said that full classes in all the schools can only operate after some time. At least 3,000 classrooms of nearly 500 schools in Nuwakot have been damaged. Elsewhere in Dolkha, there were minimal presence of students today. Parents are hesitant to send their children to school in Dolkha in the absence of proper temporary shelters to run classes. There were better pictures in Dhading as 90% of schools started operation today. Meanwhile, schools for the deaf and visually impaired have also resumed from today. Like other students, on the very first day after the devastating earthquake, they were also provided with informative messages by setting up alternative facilities.
केही डर त लागिरहेछ फेरि पनि भूकम्प आउँछ कि भन्ने डर त छ तै पनि साथीहरुसँग बस्दाखेरि डर कम भएको छ हाम्रो स्कुल पनि यहाँ अघि हामीले कार्यक्रम गरेका थियौं यो चाहिँ अगाडि चाहिँ रेट्रोफिटिङ गरेका थियो 1 महिना अगाडि र स्कुलका दुईटा भवन चाहिँ बलियो भएको कारणले गर्दाखेरि यहाँ पढ्नलाई मलाई
These are the students from a higher secondary school for deaf in Naxal. Recreational activities were held in the school in order to generate conducive teaching and learning atmosphere. Altogether 401 students study at the school. The earthquake caused major damage to the school's 2 of the 4 buildings. Only few students showed up on the first day on Sunday, owing to which all the students were kept inside a single classroom. Similar was the scene at the school for the visually impaired Namuna Machindra Higher Secondary School in Lagankil. Some of the students here were seen singing and dancing. The hearing and visually impaired children are more prone to the negative impacts incurred during the time of natural calamities. Keeping this fact in mind, the differently abled children were taught specific safety tactics on their schools. According to the Education Ministry, there are 30,000 visually impaired school-going children across the country, while the number of deaf school-going students stand at 15,000. The schools have resumed from today since the devastating earthquake. In this context, we asked the students at different schools in the capital how was their first day in their school. After more than a month's hiatus, before we go for a short break, let's have a look at what they had to say.
Brought to you by World Top in A-Level, Xavier International School, Kalapul, Kathmandu, DAV High Secondary School, Jaulakhel, Lalitpur, Master Builders Cement, Building Your Future, Noble Academy High Secondary School, New Maneswar, Kathmandu, Nepex, Sajilo Karza, Nepal Express Finance Limited, Valley Public High Secondary School, Sundarbasti, Bhangal, Kathmandu, Bridge Cement, Solid Cement Libansa, Solid Ghar.
लागिरहेछ स्कुल खोलेपछि पढ्न पाउँछ अनि साथीहरु भेट्न पाउँछ धेरै कुरा सिक्न पाउँछ त्यही भएर राम्रो लागेको छ
पढ्न पाएर कस्तो नराम्रो लागेको थियो हैन अनि आएपछि अलि खुसी भयो हैन रमाइलो भइरहेछ साथीहरु भेट्यो सरहरु भेट्यो हैन रमाइलो भइरहेछ महिनापछि अब स्कुल आउँदाखेरि अब सबै साथीहरुसँग भेटाएर गयो हैन सबै साथीहरुसँग भेटघाट हुँदाखेरि रमाइलो भइरहेछ अहिले राम्रो फिलिङ भइरहेछ स्कुलमा चाहिँ अब त्यही रमाइलो भइरहेछ भन्नु पर्यो
धेरै दिनपछि स्कुल आउन पाइएको छ र पढ्न पाइएको छ राम्रै लागिरहेछ खुसी लागेको छ पढ्न पाउँदा
साथीहरु भेट्न पाउँदा एकदमै खुसी लागिरहेछ हाम्रो स्कुल सकुशल भएको देखेर झन् खुसी लागिरहेछ
शिक्षकहरूसित भेट्दा एकदमै रमाइलो लागिरहेछ साथीहरूसित विभिन्न कुरा गर्न पाउँदा पठन पाठन गर्न पाउँदा एकदमै रमाइलो लागिरहेछ यसरी साथीहरूसँग यसरी टिचरहरूसँग भेट हुन्छ कि हुँदैन थाहा थिएन आज यसरी साथीहरूसँग भेट भएर आफ्नो मनोबल बढिरहेको छ यसरी डान्सहरू गरिरहेको छ रमाइलो गरिरहेको छौँ कतिजना विद्यार्थीहरू आज हाम्रो साथीहरूको पनि मृत्यु भएको छ उसको प्रति शोक पनि मनाइरहेका छौँ यसरी भेट हुन्छ भने अवश्य नै मैले चिताएको पनि थिइनँ लागेको 2-3 दिनमै यस्तो ठुलो ट्रासवाला भूकम्प आएपछि हामीलाई पढ्न पाएनौँ बिदा भयो साथीहरू पनि भेट्न पाएनौँ त्यसैले हाम्रो साथीहरू कतिको मृत्यु भएर हामीले तिनीहरू नरमाइलो लागेको हुनाले हामीले यो भूकम्पको त्रासलाई हटाएर आज हामीले मनोरञ्जन कार्यक्रम गरिरहेको छौँ किनकि उनीहरूको मनमा त्रासहरू हटोस् भनेर उनीहरूको मात्रै होइन हामी सबैको मनमा भूकम्पको त्रास हटोस् भनेर हामीले आज रमाइलो कार्यक्रम गर्न लागेको छ मलाई यसरी रमाइलो गरेर म यो स्कुलमा पढ्न पाउँछु भने मलाई एक थोपा पनि लागेको थिएन र मलाई यस्तो खुसी लागेको छ हामी यो पद्मकन्या स्कुल केही पनि नभत्केर राम्रोसँग छ र
1 महिनापछि स्कुल लाग्दाखेरि साथीहरू भेटिया छ टिचरहरू भेटिया छ अनि एकअर्काको एक्सपिरियन्सहरू बाँडिएको छ अनि अलि भूकम्पबाट बाहिर आएर निकै नै रमाइलो भएको जस्तो लागिरहेछ
साथीहरू आफ्नो मनमा भएको कुराहरू सेयर गर्न पाएको छु अनि त्यसपछि स्कुलमा के भइरहेको छ स्कुल सुरक्षित छ कि असुरक्षित छ त्यो हेर्न पाएको छु र अनि आफूले नयाँ कुरा सिक्न पाएको छु
सबै साथीहरूलाई सकुशल देखेर एकदम मन खुसी भइरहेछ र 1 महिनाको जुन लामो भूकम्प आयो हाम्रो त्यसमा हामीले 1 महिना स्कुल पनि छुट्टी भयो त्यसमा पढ्न नपाएर हामी एकदम दुखी पनि छौँ हाम्रो पढाइ लस्ट भएको छ हाम्रो अब टेस्ट भएर हाम्रो स्कुल बिदा हुने कार्यक्रम हुन्छ जहिले पनि यसपालि हाम्रो टेस्ट पछि स्कुल बिदा नहोस् भन्ने चाहन्छु
चलायो त्यसपछि घरमा बस्दा धेरै डर लागेको थियो अहिले अब स्कुलमा आउँदाखेरि साथीहरूसँग कुरा गर्यो उनीहरूको अनुभवहरू सेयर गर्यो टिचरहरूले आफ्नो अनुभवहरू सेयर गर्नुभयो त्यो सुन्दाखेरि धेरै रमाइलो पनि लाग्यो अब कसरी यसबाट बस्न सकिन्छ भनेर टिचरहरूले भन्नुभयो त्यसबाट अलि मन शान्त भएको छ धेरै रमाइलो भएको छ
Under these rules, the display of warning on tobacco products has been mandatory. Despite new directives, the government has still not been able to discourage tobacco consumption in public places. According to STEP Survey 2013, a person dies every hour from smoking and over 15,000 succumb due to smoking every year. The survey also says that 30.8% people between the age of 15 to 59 consume tobacco products in Nepal. After signing the WHO's protocol on the use of tobacco control, new regulations and directives were formulated in 2011. As per the directive, the warning message has to cover 75% of the tobacco product. After the success of the campaign, Nepal won the American Bloomberg Award and bagged prize money of 100,000 rupees, American dollars, last year. The government increased the 75% warning message to 90% since May this year and is preparing to make it effective. However, the government's anti-smoking campaign in public places has not been effectively implemented. Nepalis living abroad have helped set up temporary houses and schools along with playgrounds for the earthquake victims in Sindhupalchok. Children who were under mental stress due to earthquake-related anxieties are now beginning to feel relaxed to some extent. While rural villages in Sindhupalchok were not receiving sufficient relief items and had no means to support themselves, Nepalis living in China, Macau and Hong Kong have extended a helping hand to the children of Karthali in Sindhupalchok. Along with establishing a scholarship fund worth 300,000 rupees at the local Ishwari Mala Secondary School, they have also built a playground for the children at an additional cost of 600,000 rupees. The temporary shelters and a playground for the school and toilets have been primarily aimed at as a support for 40 Dalit families in the rural Karthali VDC. The schools and playgrounds had proven beneficial for the students of Karthali VDC and the nearby villages. Likewise, the homeless earthquake victims are also happy to find a shelter. Meanwhile, artists, journalists, medical practitioners and psychiatrists who visited Karthali said that various positive steps can help to overcome the earthquake-related fears. Time for an international update. The European Union has responded angrily to Russia's entry ban against 89 European politicians, officials and military leaders. Those banned are believed to include General Secretary of the EU Council, Ue Corsepius, and former of EU sanctions against Russia. EU sanctions were imposed after Russia annexed Ukraine's Crimea region in March 2014, and they have been extended amid ongoing fighting between government troops and pro-Russia separatists in eastern Ukraine. Swiss pilot Andre Boschberg has begun his bid to cross the Pacific from China to Hawaii in the zero-fuel Solar Impulse aeroplane. The experimental aircraft, which has a wingspan bigger than a jumbo but weighs a little more than a large car, left Nanjing today morning. It is likely to take Boschberg 5 to 6 days of continuous flight to reach his central Pacific destination. He will try to stay awake for much of that time, taking only short cat naps. His progress will be monitored the entire way from a control room in Monaco. Meteorologists and flight strategists will constantly update him on the best route to follow. The journey is the seventh leg in the single-seat propeller-driven aircraft's quest to circumnavigate the globe using just the energy of the sun. The project made steady progress after starting out from Abu Dhabi in March, but was held up for more than a month on China's east coast, waiting for the right weather conditions over the ocean. Solar Impulse needs not only favorable winds to help push it forward, but also clear skies to enable its 17,000 wing-mounted photovoltaic cells to achieve peak performance. With that, we'll take a short break. For more news, stay tuned.
Reliance Cement. Business Day brought to you by 20 वर्षदेखि निरन्तर यहाँहरूको साथमा एभरेस्ट बैंक लिमिटेड दिगो दरिलो र विश्वासिलो सनराइज विशेष मुद्दती सनराइज बैंक लिमिटेड राइजिङ टु सर्भ
The recent earthquakes have damaged some operational hydro projects and those under construction. Despite the impact, Nepal Electricity Authority has said it will not induce increased hours of load shedding. Some 24 under construction hydro projects have been damaged by the recent earthquakes. Fortunately, the damages incurred are not beyond repair. In some other cases, the damage to the roads leading to the construction sites have stalled the project work. This is likely to impact the completion of the projects. Meanwhile, the damage to 14 small power plants constructed through private sector has led to a loss of 85 megawatts of energy. The government is going to set up a fund to control unnatural ups and downs in the share market. Citizens Investment Fund has taken the initiative to establish the fund to work as market maker. With the Citizen Investment Fund at the helm, the company has started the initiative for a fund of 6 billion rupees. The Citizen Investment Fund will contribute 2 billion rupees. Talks are also underway with Nepal Telecom, Employees Provident Fund and State-owned National Insurance Corporation in this regard. Fund spokesperson Sushil Aryal informed that they have requested Nepal Stock Exchange and Securities Board of Nepal to allow separate window for the transactions of securities bond. Time for the sports update.
Sports news brought to you by Xavier International Montessori School, Kalapul, Kathmandu. Trusted name in flooring and furnishing, Halesi Decor, Java Hill. Pran Litchi Drink, Pran Potato Cracker, Novel Academy Higher Secondary School, New Baneshwar, Kathmandu. Bridge Cement, solid cement le bन्छ solid घर.
The national cricket team left for India to prepare for the upcoming ICC T20 World Cup qualifiers and World Cricket League Championship. Nepal will train in Indian state of Himachal for 2 weeks. The team will train in Dharmashala Stadium in Himachal. The national team will play 3 practice matches against the local clubs as a part of the training. The team will return to Nepal prior to leaving for T20 World Cup qualifiers in Ireland and Scotland. The T20 World Cup is scheduled from 9th to 26th July. Cricket Association of Nepal will also announce the final list of players on the basis of team's performance in these practice matches. Nepal is also scheduled to play some practice matches in England before the tournament commences on the 9th of July. Likewise, Nepal will play 2 matches against Scotland under World Cricket League Championship. The recent earthquake has also dented the Nepalese football. The only stadium of international standard, Dashrath Stadium, is not in a condition to hold any tournament at the moment. The April 25th earthquake has also halted the National League, which would have reached a halfway mark by now. The earthquake has dented the football calendar by affecting the only source of income of many footballers in the country. Due to rising heat at this time of the year, ANFI is mulling to stall the National League for at least 2 months and resume the championship with renewed vigor. Meanwhile, only 7 months remain for SAF Championship, and players also need to prepare for this mega football event of South Asian region. At a time when coach Jack Stefanowski's term had also ended, ANFA has the added responsibility of nominating a new coach and move the Nepalese football in the right gear. And before we wrap up, here's the main stories once again. Major parties agreed to form national consensus government only after constitution promulgation, vowed to focus on reconstruction then after. Schools reopen after a month-long hiatus. All goes well on the first day of resumption. The European Union is livid with Russia's entry ban against 89 European politicians, officials and military leaders. And national cricket team leaves for India to prepare for ICC T20 World Cup qualifiers and World Cricket League Championship. That's all for now. Keep watching Kantipur Television. Good night.